In a small village nestled between rolling hills, where the sun kissed the earth with a golden hue each morning, lived a young woman named Zara. Her life was simple yet filled with dreams, until one fateful day, she crossed paths with Kofi, a charming and ambitious young man with eyes that sparkled like the stars above. They met during a local festival, where Zara had been dancing with her friends under the full moon. Kofi, mesmerized by her graceful movements and infectious laughter, found himself drawn to her like a magnet. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and that night, under the African sky, their connection was born. As months passed, Zara and Kofi became inseparable. They spent their days sharing stories, laughter, and aspirations. Kofi would take Zara on long walks through the village, dreaming aloud about the life they would build together. He spoke of their future marriage, children, and a home filled with love and warmth. Zara, her heart fluttering with excitement, imagined the same future. She pictured their children playing in the fields, and Kofi by her side, growing old together, their love only growing stronger with time. They shared countless nights under the stars, discussing their dreams, how they would build a house on the edge of the village, surrounded by gardens filled with colorful flowers and sweet-smelling herbs. They imagined their children running freely, their laughter echoing through the air. Kofi promised to always protect her, to support her dreams, and Zara, with every fiber of her being, believed him. She saw their love as something eternal, something destined to last forever. Zara's heart swelled with love as she invested more and more of herself into this relationship. Her entire world began to revolve around Kofi, his dreams became hers, and together they envisioned a life so beautiful that it felt like a fairy tale. She trusted him completely, believing that their love was invincible. In her eyes, they were meant to be together, their souls intertwined in a bond that no one could break. Little did she know, this dream would soon begin to unravel, but for now, her heart was full, and the future seemed as bright as the African sun. After years of laughter, shared dreams, and quiet moments under the stars, Kofi finally took Zara's hand one evening and led her to a quiet spot by the river where they had first met. The air was warm, and the faint sound of the water flowing over the rocks created a peaceful harmony. The moonlight bathed everything in a soft glow, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Kofi dropped to one knee, his heart pounding in his chest, and pulled from his pocket a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside was a beautiful ring, designed with the colors of the earth and the sky. His voice, though filled with nervous excitement, was steady as he looked into Zara's eyes. "Zara, my love, you are my heart and my soul. I've dreamed of this day, of spending forever with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Zara's eyes as she gasped, her heart leaping in her chest. This was the moment she had waited for, the culmination of all the dreams they had shared. She couldn't believe it was finally happening. Her breath caught as she whispered, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." The world seemed to stand still as Kofi slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing their promise to each other. The night was perfect, the promise of a bright future shining like the stars above. Zara couldn't stop smiling, her heart overflowing with joy. The love she had always felt for Kofi was now affirmed, solidified in this sacred moment. The news of their engagement spread quickly through the village. Zara's friends and family, who had watched their love grow, gathered in celebration. An engagement party was held in the heart of the village, a grand affair filled with music, dancing, and laughter. The village elders blessed their union, offering prayers for a long and happy marriage. Everyone who knew them was overjoyed, seeing how perfectly they complemented each other. The atmosphere was electric with excitement and love. Zara felt like the luckiest woman in the world, surrounded by those she loved and knowing that her future with Kofi was now certain. In that moment, everything seemed perfect. Zara's heart was full of happiness, and she could hardly believe how blessed she was to have found a love so deep, so unwavering. Her dreams, once just fleeting thoughts, were now becoming reality. The woman who had once danced alone under the stars now danced in the arms of the man who promised to be with her forever. The future had never looked brighter. As the days passed after the engagement, a subtle shift began to take place, one that Zara couldn't quite put her finger on. At first, it was small things. Kofi would cancel plans, telling her he had work to do or that he was meeting friends. The spark in their conversation seemed to dim, like a flicker of a flame struggling against the wind. The long walks they used to take, where they would talk for hours about their dreams and hopes, became fewer and farther between. Kofi would often retreat into his own world, spending more time with his friends or engrossed in his work. Zara, sensing the change, felt a pang of unease. The closeness they once shared seemed to slip through her fingers, like sand in the wind. She would try to talk to him about it, gently asking if something was wrong. "Kofi, is everything okay? You've seemed a little distant lately," she would ask, her voice soft with concern. But every time, Kofi would smile reassuringly, brushing off her worries with a wave of his hand. "Don't worry, Zara. It's just work. I'm doing it for us, for our future," he would say, his tone calm and dismissive. "Everything's fine. Don't let it bother you." But Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The laughter that once filled their home seemed quieter now, and the shared plans they once discussed had faded into vague promises. She had always believed in the strength of their bond, yet now, every day felt like a struggle to hold on to the love they once had. It wasn't just the time apart, but the way Kofi's presence seemed to change. He was there physically, but emotionally, he seemed miles away. Still, she held on to the hope that it was just a phase. Perhaps the wedding planning had him stressed, or maybe he was overwhelmed by his responsibilities. She trusted him, after all, and if he said everything was fine, she had no reason to doubt him. But as the days turned into weeks, the weight of his silence grew heavier in Zara's heart, and the first cracks in their perfect world began to show. She couldn't understand what was happening, but a small voice inside her whispered that the man she thought she knew so well might be slipping away from her, slowly but surely. Zara found herself wondering whether she was imagining things, or whether this was just the beginning of something much deeper. But for now, she held on, clinging to the belief that everything would return to normal, that the love they had once shared could still be saved. She was determined to believe in their future, no matter how uncertain it felt. As the weeks passed, the subtle changes in Kofi's behavior began to intensify. Zara couldn't help but notice the growing silence between them. The once effortless flow of conversations had become strained, as though there was something unspoken hanging in the air. Kofi would come home late, his mind preoccupied with his phone or his work, never really engaging with her. When she tried to talk to him about their wedding plans, he would brush it off with vague responses. "We'll talk about it later," he'd say, his voice lacking the excitement it once held when they first discussed their future. Zara began to feel like she was living with a stranger. The Kofi she had known, the man who held her hand through their dreams and whispered sweet words about their future, seemed to be slipping further away. His emotional withdrawal was becoming harder to ignore. He no longer made the effort to surprise her with small gestures of love, nor did he talk about their life together in the same enthusiastic way he used to. She would catch him staring off into space, lost in thoughts she couldn't reach. And when she reached out to him, whether for affection or reassurance, she felt an invisible wall between them, growing taller and taller with each passing day. Her mind began to race. Was it the pressure of the wedding planning? Maybe work had gotten too demanding? Zara tried to rationalize it, convincing herself that it was just a temporary phase. After all, life wasn't always smooth sailing, and stress could affect anyone. She told herself to be patient, to give him space. But with every day that passed, the space between them seemed to widen, and Zara couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in her gut. Her friends started to notice the change too. They had always admired Zara and Kofi's relationship, the way they seemed so in sync, so perfect together. But now, they whispered behind her back, worried about the tension they saw in the couple. "Are you and Kofi okay?" one of her close friends asked, her voice laced with concern. "You guys don't seem as happy as you used to be." Zara smiled weakly, but inside, she felt the sting of doubt growing sharper. She hadn't realized how much the distance between her and Kofi was becoming visible to everyone around her. Even her family, who had always been supportive and excited about the upcoming wedding, began to ask questions. "Kofi's not around much lately," her mother remarked one evening, a hint of concern in her voice. "Is he okay? Are you okay?" Zara smiled, forcing her usual calm demeanor, but deep down, her heart began to sink. She couldn't ignore the growing cracks in their relationship any longer. Every day, she questioned whether the distance between them was just a temporary hardship, or if something more was at play. The dreams they had once shared now felt distant, like fading echoes in a vast, empty space. Zara's hope was starting to waver, but she refused to fully let go. She clung to the belief that love could conquer all, even this growing distance between them. But the more she held on, the more the tension between them tightened, leaving her with the unsettling feeling that things would never be the same again. It was an ordinary afternoon, the sun casting a warm glow through the windows as Zara prepared dinner, the comforting scent of spices filling the air. Kofi had come home earlier than usual, though his presence seemed different. He walked in quietly, not the usual cheerful man who would greet her with a kiss or a kind word. Today, there was something heavy about him, an invisible weight that seemed to hang in the air between them. Zara, sensing the change in his mood, tried to lighten the atmosphere. "How was your day?" she asked, her voice soft, attempting to bridge the growing gap that had taken over their once easy relationship. Kofi didn't respond right away. Instead, he stared at the floor for a long moment, his fingers absent-mindedly tapping on the table. Zara's heart raced. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones, but she couldn't yet comprehend the enormity of what was coming. Finally, Kofi took a deep breath, his voice barely a whisper. "Zara, we need to talk." The words hit her like a sudden storm, a sense of dread spreading through her chest. She stopped what she was doing, slowly turning to face him, her stomach twisting into knots. "I've been holding something in for months," Kofi continued, his voice shaky, but determined. "I've been trying to ignore it, trying to push it aside because I didn't know how to say it. But I can't pretend anymore." Zara's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced, but she couldn't find the words. She waited, her eyes fixed on his, hoping this was just another moment of tension that would pass. Kofi looked at her with a mixture of sadness and regret. "I don't want to get married," he said, the words hitting her like a slap in the face. "I don't think I can. I've been trying to convince myself that I was ready, that I was doing this for us. But the truth is, I'm not ready. I'm not sure I ever was." For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The kitchen around them, once filled with the warmth of anticipation and dreams of a shared future, now felt cold and empty. Zara stood there, her mind struggling to process the words. She had imagined 1,000 scenarios for their future together, but never this one. Never the one where the man she loved, the man she had given her heart to, suddenly turned away from her. "How could you?" Zara's voice broke, but she couldn't finish the sentence. Her throat tightened, her chest tightening with the weight of betrayal. The shock and confusion flooded her heart, drowning out any rational thought. "How could you wait this long to tell me? We've been planning our lives together. How could you just change your mind?" Kofi looked pained, his face crumpling with the weight of his own regret. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. "I've been thinking about this for so long. Every time we talked about our future, I felt like I was suffocating. I thought maybe if I just pushed through, it would get better, but it never did. And now, I can't ignore it anymore." Zara could feel the ground slipping beneath her. Her heart, once full of love and dreams, was now a shattered mess of confusion and disbelief. She wanted to scream, to beg him to take it all back, but her voice felt trapped in her chest. Everything she thought she knew about their relationship, about their love, was crumbling before her eyes. She stood in silence for a long time, the silence between them growing louder with every passing second. She felt betrayed, her trust shattered by the person she had trusted most in this world. She had invested everything into this relationship, imagining a future filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. And now, all of that was slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Zara wanted to ask him why, wanted to know what had changed, but nothing seemed to make sense anymore. Her mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, disbelief, but more than anything, she felt a deep, aching emptiness. She had given him her heart, her soul, and he had thrown it all away. The woman who had once danced with joy at the thought of a future with Kofi now stood frozen in the ruins of those dreams, questioning everything she had believed in, and wondering if love had ever truly been what she thought it was. The days that followed were a blur of numbness and disbelief. Zara wandered through the motions of life, as though her body had become a shell without the soul that once filled it with joy. The home they had shared, once a place of laughter and dreams, now felt suffocating, every corner echoing the absence of the man she had planned her future with. Every room seemed colder, the silence louder. The engagement ring that once symbolized a promise of forever now weighed heavily on her finger, a painful reminder of all that had been lost. She replayed their conversations over and over, the moments when she had believed their love was unshakable, when she had trusted him with every piece of her heart. It hurt so much to realize how wrong she had been. The time they had spent together, the shared dreams, the plans for their future, they now felt like a cruel illusion. The pain of wasted time, of giving so much of herself to someone who didn't feel the same, not at her. It felt like a betrayal not just of her heart, but of her very sense of self. She questioned everything, how she could have missed the signs, how she had trusted so fully, how she had allowed herself to believe in something that had never been as solid as she thought. Zara's world, once full of possibilities, now seemed to crumble around her. She was left to rebuild her life, piece by piece, without the man who had once been the center of her universe. The questions kept coming: how could she move on? How could she trust again? Her dreams of marriage, children, and a shared life now felt like distant memories, slipping further away with each passing day. Her friends and family surrounded her, offering varying degrees of support. Some were quick to comfort her, reassuring her that she was strong and that this heartbreak would eventually pass. Her mother, ever the pillar of support, held her close, whispering words of comfort. "You are worth more than this, Zara. There is a future for you, even if it doesn't look like you imagined." Others, however, struggled to know what to say. Some tried to offer advice, suggesting that she move on quickly or find someone else, but Zara wasn't ready for that. The weight of the betrayal still felt too fresh, too raw. She wasn't sure if she could ever love someone the same way again, or if she even wanted to. The emptiness was overwhelming, and no one could truly understand the depth of her pain. Some people in the community, particularly those who had seen her and Kofi as the perfect couple, didn't know how to approach her. They avoided eye contact or offered half-hearted condolences, as if they, too, were still grappling with the shattered image of what they thought was a perfect love story. But there were others, friends who had been by her side through thick and thin, who offered their unwavering support. They listened without judgment, offering a safe space for Zara to express her pain without fear of being dismissed or misunderstood. In the midst of the turmoil, Zara began to slowly pick up the pieces of her broken heart. The process was slow and agonizing, but she started to learn that healing didn't come from forgetting what had happened, but from accepting it. She began to focus on herself, rediscovering the woman she had been before she had lost herself in someone else. Slowly, the weight of the betrayal began to lighten, though it would never fully disappear. But the path forward wasn't easy. She was forced to navigate a world that no longer felt familiar. The man she had planned a future with was now a ghost in her past, and she had to find a way to move forward without him. The community's reactions, ranging from support to silence, became a backdrop to her own journey of healing. She learned that not everyone would understand, but she didn't need everyone's approval to move forward. In time, she would find her strength again, though it would be a journey that was uniquely her own. Over time, Zara began to heal, though the journey was slow and painful. She spent moments in solitude, rediscovering who she was before her life became entangled with Kofi's. As she embraced her independence, she learned that her worth wasn't defined by his decision or anyone else's. She started reclaiming her passions and dreams, realizing that love should enhance, not diminish, her identity. Zara became stronger, more self-aware, and more confident in her own value. In the end, she embraced her future on her own terms, ready to move forward with a heart healed and a renewed sense of self-worth.